So thank you all so much for joining us today for our conversation Beyond Borders, addressing problem gambling across communities. I'm Adina Black and I'm the program manager for MNAPG. I'm still fairly new, so if anything goes wrong, it is not my fault, okay? All right. So I first want to say thank you all for showing up. A lot of times when people ask me or I think about what makes these kind of events successful for me, it's people showing up. So please give yourselves a hand clap for making today successful for us so far. Okay, wonderful. So, as we all know, problem gambling really impacts different communities very differently. So I think it's important that we highlight our leaders that are on the ground and the successful work that they're doing. Even though we are a small but mighty team at MNAPG, we are made strong by our partners who are extensions of the work that we do and who work alongside of us to help make impacts in this field. So today we have a couple of our extended family to talk with us about the work that they're doing, different successful strategies that they've used, and hopefully help us to talk about ways that we can move forward. So first we have Angie Wang. She is the executive director for Asian Media Access. They specialize in different communication and messaging for different cultural organizations and communities across Minnesota.
Thank you, Adina.
We have Lucas Patterson, who is the founder of Neighborhood Youth Academy. He works with young athletes of color, moving them across their athletic career path and into higher education. Lucas. And we
Thank
have,
you.
And we have Billy Benjoko. She works with Progressive Individual Resources as a licensed therapist, and she makes sure to work with different multicultural groups and sub-Saharan African populations.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so first I want us to just talk about the different populations and communities that you all work with. I would just like to walk through what those different communities look like. So Billy, can you describe for us a little bit about who is included in the communities that you work with?
All right. Thank you, Adina. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to share our experiences with everyone. Like Adina said, I work with a Progressive Individual Resources. We're a multicultural agency, been around since 1988, providing culturally competent services to people from within our community. And the community will focus on gambling addiction is the sub-Saharan Africa, people from sub-Saharan Africa. It comprises about 46 different countries who have, believe it or not, community, cultural, who have representations here in the state of Minnesota. So all these 46 countries have different communities here in Minnesota. Can I continue?
Sure, you can continue.
All right, so we do provide outreach discussion about gambling addiction, and different communities have different perspective on gambling. Yes, I'm African, but Africa is a continent. I'm just from one little part of Africa. I'm Nigerian. So when we approach other communities, we have to go through their own cultural lens so that we can, like, I can't just go and say, oh yeah, I know how you do it in your community, because I don't. Even though we're all Africans, they're different cultures, different communities. So breaking it down, helping them help us to understand what gambling addiction means in that community. So that's the approach that we use. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lucas, can you talk a little bit about who is included in the community that you work with young athletes?
Yeah, so Neighborhood Youth Academies, this is my 15th year in existence. We've been helping young student athletes for 15 years, over 500 of them we serve. Over the last 5 years, 4.5 years, we've been in the gambling grant. And it started off a little slow because we were in what was it called? the pandemic. So we were in the pandemic wearing masks and being social distanced. And so we worked with it. We made it work in different ways on Zooms and different type of meetings. We actually created some commercials and different things from our perspectives. I work with the majority African American youth and particularly young black males from the inner city. And we've been able to do some amazing things with them in the last 15 years to create environments for them to grow. And in our community, it's not real prevalent talking about gambling. So we don't, that's not something we focus on. And so to be having a focus on gambling is a little different. And I think it comes with a lot. It's a deeper well than just gambling. And it starts in the house. It starts in our community, and we have to deliver certain messages so we can even get to even talking about gambling. So it's deeper, and we've had some success, and we want to continue to build on the success that we had. We've served kids all over the country now, and I will elaborate a little bit more later on.
And can you, before you finish up, can you remind me what are the age range of this?
Typically, it's between elementary school, probably 4th, 5th, to high school, and maybe a year or two removed.
Okay, great. And Angie, can you describe for us who is included in the population of Asian communities that you work with?
Thank you, everyone. Hello, I'm Angie. I'm with Asian Media Access. And we have been involved in the problem gambling prevention for the past 5 years as well. And we serve a lot of Asian Americans and Pacific Islander community. It's not working, but I'll do my best. Oh, good. So can we have the slides for me? So my community is really diverse. As Billy has said, Pan Asians has coming from the North Asia all the way to South Asia, including a lot of Southeast Asian community. Next, please. One of the community I really want to highlight, next please, is the communities we have within the subculture teams. We have Laotian community, and on the right-hand side, you can see it's one of our partner, Lao Assistance Center, who is sharing this with us. Gambling during the snows at the outside, which is really reflect what they have been doing at the homeland as well. Next, please. And then this one is the Vietnamese. This one is taking at the Vietnamese community gathering during the New Year. So we have a lot of different young people also there to gather together and doing the betting right at the celebration. Next, please. And this one is our Chinese American communities. We play mahjong during the New Year, and then we have the get-together. During the get-together, we're putting out a lot of those gambling prevention flyer as well. So within these 3 communities, you already see all the diversity, and you already see there are different gambling habits. So please keep in mind when you work with our communities, they are very diverse, but at the same time, you can tell gambling is integrating into all the community lives. And I'll talk this more later.
Thank you. So something that I want to kind of piggyback off of what you just said that is important in figuring out strategies and addressing problem gambling is understanding how it manifests in these different communities, because it looks very different, right, for how it might manifest from one person to the other. For example, in a lot of Asian communities, it might be a part of tradition, right, and then it develops into something else. Whereas for athletes, it might start off as a hobby or something and develop into something else. So understanding how that manifestation starts is really important. So that's kind of what I want to talk about now is for your different communities, what does that manifestation look like? How does it start? What are some origins of the problem? And I'll start with you, Lucas. Can you talk about how it looks for athletes that you work with?
So for us, it starts with gaming. I believe whatever it starts innocent. It starts playing games or betting on games or shots or whatever. And I think a lot of times, a lot of our youth don't even know that they're gambling. They don't even know the ramifications. They probably know they're gambling, but they don't know that it leads to these certain truths. And it starts young, and being part of like the gaming piece of it, like playing the games, betting on games. They got Fortnite. You can buy like certain equipment in the game that doesn't even mean anything, and then there's a lot. I think it starts that small, and then it grows and it festers, and then it becomes a part of their anatomy, part of what they learned, and a part of their community.
Right. And now that we continue to see the field of gambling just expand, we're also seeing the options and the possibilities and the avenues to be able to participate in these things just grow. And one thing that I found very interesting in having conversations with you is talking about even athletes having the opportunity to be able to gamble or bet against themselves. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we do little case studies with the guys. We're talking about situations that happened in the NC2A and the NBA. There was a guy that just recently gambled on himself and got banned from the NBA. University of Temple was under investigation for their players gambling on their games. So there's ramifications. There's consequences for your actions, and they're drastic, and they're life changing, and it seems innocent at first, and then you're betting on games and betting on things that you're basically gambling with your future. And it doesn't seem like that to these athletes until you break it down and let them know how serious it is.
Thank you. Angie, can you describe a little bit about some of the manifestations of problem gambling in your communities?
Next slide, please. A lot of time, Asian Americans community gambling definitely is a recreational for a lot of us because it's in the culture. So we get together during the New Year's, we are playing mahjong, we are playing different ways as a recreational gambling. And you can see the slides. This is on the left-hand side is the bus going to Mystic Lake from the Mall of America. Asians, a lot of Asians. And they are definitely starting to change their recreational gambling habits much more into a mainstream way, go to casinos and playing games there. If you see the left-hand side, the right-hand side photos, go to casino is not just one way to, as an individual act. In a lot of Asian cultures, just going into casino, it's a social event for them. And you can tell when they wearing the jewelries, all the really highlighting their status. So in some ways, they are not just going to casino to gambling, but casino to social, to casino to showcase their social status, which is very important for our community. Because if you don't have this opportunity, you really don't have a place for Asians to social. When you're thinking about it, so we depending a lot of time on those social gatherings at the temples, and there's a limited opportunities. And then for a lot of Chinese restaurant workers, after hours, they have no place to go. They only be able to go to casino. But when you go to casino, you are social. You are also at the time to showcase your social status. So they were trying to outbid to each other. So that social activities becomes much more a gambling's problems. So those are the social and cultural context I hope all the participants will keep in mind, because it's not just simply treated with Asian gambling problem individually, but you really talking about a whole community together, a whole family together as a unit instead of individual. So that is the first one I will want to highlight. The second one I want to highlight is, in some way, we heard a lot of community members tell us, it's in my blood. Gambling is in my blood. It's a cultural thing, and they trying to accept as a cultural practice. Next, please. We have a quote from here. And so it's just kind of like, it's really like their life. So some of the immigrants from Vietnamese would say they went to casino all the time. So that becomes such a normalization for that gambling activity at the cultural perspective. The last one I want to handle is gambling is somewhat has a click with my community. My community would say, I heard the bird chirping 3 times. I will bet 3 this morning. So a lot of those cultural charm, they are really feel that's connected with them, and they want to express those through betting. So those are the cultural implications sometimes you may not see from the mainstream community. And please keep in mind how we can incorporate those culture into your practice.
Thank you. And Billy, can you talk to us a little bit across the different African communities that you work with? Are there things that you see that sort of start as manifestations of this kind of problem?
Thank you. So a lot of African immigrants, when they come here, they are confronted with a number of things. Loss of social support system, discrimination, hostility, language barrier, loneliness, isolation, all these things cause stress that might lead to gambling addiction. Now, we don't have any research, but I mean, talking to people in the community, okay, and then even not even understanding the system, financial constraint, all these things combined together, and there's somebody telling you, oh yeah, let's go to the casino. I mean, you might make some money, and there's a bus waiting to take you to the casino. So all these things put together manifest these things. That's what we think. Like I said, there's no formal research. Nobody's researching people from our community. We're just doing it on our own. But like things like that, things that immigrants go through that cause stresses for them. And we know stress is one of the leading causes of gambling addiction. So that contributes to it.
Great, thank you. So I know that, despite knowing what some of these things are and even having successful examples of initiatives and resources that you developed, that there still are challenges to individuals even being able to access or taking advantage of these resources. I want to talk a little bit about what some of those challenges and barriers are. And I'll start with you this time, Billy.
Thank you. All right. So within our community, mental health issues, addiction, all these things are still a taboo. There's still a huge stigma attached to this. So that's one of our biggest barriers. Like, people don't want to disclose that they're dealing with these things. Mental health is huge. We don't acknowledge mental health. People don't want to associate with people who have mental health issues. People sometimes don't want their kids to marry someone like, oh, his uncle has mental health issues, then you can't marry somebody from that. So it's huge. So that's our biggest barrier. The stigma that is attached to mental health is not letting people come forward. That's one. 2, people are not even they don't trust the system. They don't trust, people don't want their stories in the community. So if I come to talk to a therapist, how do I know my information is not going to go into so the lack of trust with the system. How do I know that my story is not going to go into the community? So that also ties into the stigmatization, right? And of course, not understanding the system, lack of knowledge about resources available, things like that all compound together. But like I said, the number one barrier is that stigma and the shame, that comes with mental health. And that's what we're trying to through our outreach is just like, trying to let people know that it's all confidential. If you see me in public, you don't have to say hi to me, even though I'm your therapist and things like that. But we have a long way to go. I mean, a long, long way to go. All right, thank you.
And same to you, Lucas. What are some of those barriers that you've seen in sharing the resources that you have?
Yeah, I'm a ditto Billy's mental health, and then also we got our community definitely has an issue with that. We don't address it, and that's part of the reason why we get in situations that are not beneficial for us. The other reason is obviously the lack of resources. We don't know, and what we don't know, we don't address. So, them two things are our biggest barriers.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, Angie, can you describe for us what some of those challenges look like?
Yeah, and definitely I think that ditto those comments. But I really feel it's also a system barrier so strong. For example, like this morning, we talk about a lot of step in the therapy process, setting goal. Very straightforward, but it is very hard for our community member to setting goal because they are not thinking just for themselves. So when you're asking them setting goal, you will say, can you be able to doing A, B, C? And it's just hard for them because they will say, oh, I want to save money for my families. They will not say directly related to themselves. So the goal setting during the process for the therapy session is just not effective for our community because a lot of those questions, it's really harder for them to think and to make a good result because it's really based on very individualized concept. But in our culture, they immerse with the families. If my family don't do this, I won't be able to do this. If my family want to go to casino as a family together, it's harder for me to say no. So a lot of goal setting for them is related to the family. So it's sometimes out of their control. So it becomes ineffective for them to set the goal because the goal is much more immersed in a larger context. So that type of process, a mental health counseling process, it's getting difficult for my community to continue. They were willing to participate, but the talking therapy is not the solution for them. So a lot of those system barriers we have not talked about. And we really hope is if we can thinking about it, how can we do this cultural integration way? So it's the design for the treatment. It's not just based on the Eurocentric definition for what that individual need. So if we can change that concept, it will have a better chance for our community.
Thank you. So now I want to talk a little bit about some of the successful strategies that you all have used. What has worked? Can you talk to me a little bit about those, Angie? What are some of the successful strategies and initiatives that you implemented?
I think one of the things we see as important is that immersive effect. So a lot of time you're not just putting out a message to say, do this, but you immerse the community into the message. So a lot of what we do is we sending definitely social media, cultural event. You can see we are putting out the prevention flyer out there. Continue to immerse the community into the awareness about problem gambling. You are not talking about problem gambling. You are immerse member into this thinking. Yes, that's become a trend. People has been talking about it. It becomes some things I need to join the discussion and I need to be aware of. So a lot of time it's not simple A lead to B lead to C, but really is taking a context approach, to build that awareness, that the community come to you. Because this is really key for them to take that initiative. A lot of time, the Western way to do things is if you think if I give you education materials, you will know and then you will go. And that's a very consistent way to go through all these strategies. But for us, is the receiver is making that decision. It's not the sender to tell you ABC, then you do ABC. It's the receiver has to interpret those messages and make those messages relevant to themselves and the families. Then they will make a decision. So this process takes longer. The process takes different level. So you're not just doing one. You are doing education, you're doing outreach, you are doing different language, you are doing chit-chat with my community, because that's the way you immerse them and let the receiver to starting to make a decision to say, yes, that is some things I have to be aware, and that is the community already starting to discuss. We have to look into that.
And Lucas, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the successful methods that you used?
Yeah, so early on we were in the corona, so it was all distance and doing meetings and doing things of that nature where it wasn't personable. But later we changed our strategy to empowering our youth that we take around the country and set up seminars and events across the country and spreading the messages about problem gambling. I think being in this athletic world, it becomes real small when you start getting to travel nationally and being a part of it. And these kids get to meet all these other kids, and I think that's a each one teach one, and the lessons build on each other, and the kids become more aware when they hear from their peers, and it's more engaging when the messages are coming from their peer group. So that's been a real positive staple in what we've been doing all across the country, and I think that it definitely needs to be pushed and deciphered a little bit more, just because of the NIL deals and the way college basketball is going to pay these young athletes, the way that high school kids are getting paid. There's a lot of resources that are thrown around, and not a lot of knowledge and wisdom financially, and then obviously little to none on gambling. So.
Thank you. And Billy, same to you. Can you describe some of those approaches?
So when we started this initiative, we had to approach community leaders. Like I said, yes, we're all Africans, but we had to approach our community leaders to ask them to help us, to lead us. Like, okay, let's look through your own cultural lenses. Why don't you lead these conversations? Because you know how to communicate with the community, and that has really helped. Finding out things like what was gambling called in your language, what is the, everything, like what's the approach towards gambling. So that has really helped. We've also worked with faith-based communities, going into the churches, going into the mosque, like gambling is everywhere. How do you talk to people? How do you communicate about things like that? And we've learned a lot through that. And also messaging is very important. Like, how do we convey messages to people from all our communities? And one thing that is common across African countries is the use of proverbs. Proverbs have been used for centuries to pass messages, to share messages, share wisdom, to incite, to inspire. So using those proverbs, like getting, and can you show the picture? One of the pictures. I'll show you guys a picture quickly. All right, so which one is highlighted?
It's the
Okay, so if you look at that's an African proverb right there. When two carry, it doesn't hurt, right? That's an African proverb, and it could be translated to when you seek help, when you talk to somebody about your issues, then you can get help. So that the load is reduced. So that's an example. And people connect to African proverbs. Africans connect to the proverbs. Can you show the next one? And this is another example. The ocean never swallows a person whose leg it does not come in contact with. So if you don't dabble into it, then you don't get deep into it. So that's kind of like a prevention. That's a proverb that talks about prevention. And these have been really helpful. People have connected to this program because it's something that they know, it's something that they're familiar with. There's still a lot of work to be done, but I think like this, we've been able to, by approaching community leaders and asking for their help, doing the messaging, I think we've like touched a little bit about spreading the awareness. Thank you.
And so a part of being able to maximize the potential and the impact of the success that you have is being able to share these resources with other organizations who might be able to find them useful. Can you describe how organizations can collaborate with you or come in contact with you to either work with you or learn from the work that you've done? I'll start with you, Lucas.
Yeah, I mean, just contact us. We're definitely up for partnering and doing some outreach stuff to other organizations. We've partnered with a number of organizations in Minneapolis, some youth groups, and we do, we like to do the older-younger mentorships. That's a big deal. What was the other part of the question?
Just asking about how organizations can learn from your work or either collaborate with you.
Yeah, most definitely, and we're just open just because it's a broad thing. I mean, this problem gambling and preventing gambling is deeper than just what it sounds like. And it sounds like it's an easy, straightforward thing, but it's not. As you can see, it's 3 different cultures right here that deal with different situations in their cultures. There are similar ways that we all going to be able to collab and work together, but then there's also ways that you're going to have to connect directly with your culture in certain ways. And I think helping with ideas and stuff from other cultures can even be a bigger help too as well, to be able to collab and be able to use their methods to try to address our problems in our culture.
Okay. And same to you, Billy. I want to know, with the materials that you just referenced, are these available online, or would people be able to work with you if they wanted to create something similar or replicate?
Right. Yeah, this material is available on our website. Also, there's a blog, like each picture, there's a blog attached to that, so it's all available on our website. And in terms of collaboration with other agencies, we need research. I'm a clinician, I'm not a researcher. We lack in that area. Dr. Oni is also a clinician, he's not a researcher. So we don't have any material to go with. We don't know how prevalent this is. I know that there's barriers, but we don't have any numbers. So in the area of research, we need help. In the area of messaging, we need help as well, like in media, like social media, we need more ideas on how to get the messaging out there. So collaborating with other agencies to help us put the message out there would be helpful. Thank you.
And then same to you, Angie.
Yeah, I'll call my partner, Donnell, to come forward. So we really doing a lot, I would say immerse experience, because a lot of time the strategies, mainstream strategy, will say, let's do this activity, let's do this, be more effective. But we will hope is actually we want more of together time. So we have cultural festival, we have dinners, we have listening time, we talk to each other. So we don't have strategy, but we do have a lot more of immersion experience to be able to talk about that. And Donnell, do you want to share a couple with the young people you have worked with?
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, panel, for this opportunity. We had over the last couple of years, I have had the extinct pleasure to work with a couple people on here already, and we have made some amazing impacts in regards to problem gambling. I have had the opportunity to serve youth in different capacities, and some of our youth here, this is a part of their class now. We talked about this all week and how it can have an impact. Mr. Patterson said the same thing. They don't know, and when you don't know, you just don't know. And when you talk about culture and people that look like me, especially young African-American males, that are impacted by several different things. And one of the things that they're impacted by is that we have this notion that you either become a rapper or you go play sports, right? That's the truth. And I mean, I hear a couple giggles about it, but that's actually what's happening. So how do we talk to our young people, especially if they've never been able to manage $1,000, let alone $1 million contract, or even though everybody's not going to go play sports or be a rapper? And so some of these things has been affecting our communities. And then if you drive in some of our urban communities, everywhere you go, there's advertisement about being approached with certain things like problem gambling or just gambling in period, and so it impacts them. And so there's a layer to this that we have digged into, that when you open up this can of worms when it comes to problem gambling, you start impacting, or you start seeing what's impacting not only our young people, but it's not only a systemic issue, but it's a generational issue, which causes us to have generational trauma. And so with those traumas, we have been able to have some conversations, some real conversations, not just about problem gambling, because that's the start. And then I'll be done with this. This is how it started for me. I'm gonna be completely honest and transparent with me. I wasn't always being able to stand up here and hold a mic and talk around in front of people. But I have came from an urban community that was impacted by 90s, and anybody know about the crack epidemic? All those different things impacted young black families. It took the father out the home, and so we had to do what we call survival skills. And so I started gambling when I was shooting dice in the lunchroom with lunch tickets. Give me a lunch ticket, give me a lunch ticket. Which when I started to lose, we talk about, and Dr. Oni can talk about this and other ones, our minds are not fully developed. So when we lose, we crash. And then we want that back again. And so we want that energy back again, that winning. And so now you start doing different things that's outside of gambling because you want that quick money. And so now you get into crime, which leads to another. And so this is the conversation that we've been having. I've been having. I had an opportunity to work with Neighborhood Youth Academy. We've been having to have a conversation about that. And so I'm looking forward, to continue to have a conversation. I come to, bring some young people, and young people have been impacted by this in their own community, just to see some of you all that are presenting or even a part of this, solving this problem, that they're not standing by themselves. You got someone standing with them. Thank you for the opportunity.
And that's really that immerse experience we have been talking about. Instead of a strategy hosting an educational session, but really thinking about how we can immerse those young people, because it's really the critical part is laying on the context, as Donnell has been mentioned.
Thank you. So what I really wanted to highlight in this conversation is that we really have to be connected to the communities that are on the ground, to the leaders that are on the ground, to really understand and make the biggest impact that we can. As I mentioned, I'm new to MNAPG and just gambling in general. So for me, just my own image of what gambling looked like before I came into this work has completely changed. Even hearing from some of the work that they've done or hearing other people's personal stories, I'm able to reflect and say, oh, yeah, I am familiar with this part of gambling, or I have witnessed this as gambling, right? So even my own perspective has opened up, and it made me realize that these underserved communities, even though they're usually forgotten in these conversations, they wind up being the communities that are most at risk and most impacted at the end of the day. So now I want to talk about what does it look like moving forward, right? So we've laid out, what some of the challenges are, what some of the successes are, how we can learn from each other. How do we move forward today? What are the priorities that we need to look at in moving forward? What is going to be most effective right now? And I'll leave that open to Bill.
Well, I think.
Are you going?
Oh, you going? Go ahead, Steve.
So now I'll jump in.
Thank you. So what I wanted to say, I'm going to tell a little story. I work with Progressive Individual Resources with the leadership of Dr. Richard Oni. Like I said, PRR has been around for many years, providing, culturally competent mental health services. And then we got the opportunity to provide gambling addiction services. So I got the certification, we did everything, and then we didn't have any clients, no patients from our community. We were working, but we're not working people from our community. This went on for years. And then the opportunity, get a grant to provide awareness came up. I mean, doctor only pushed and okay, then the opportunity came up. And then we started to provide this awareness, and that's where we are today. We just need to continue to have these community conversations. That's because, I mean, yes, people are still not coming to the clinic, but people are becoming more aware. People are opening up. They're telling us stories. They might say, oh, my sister or my brother, nobody's admitting that, oh, I have these issues, but we're creating the awareness, and that's what we need to continue to do. Find other ways to provide messaging, you know, and new ways. And then we even, like, when the talks of, like, starting a podcast, you know, people from our community respond to, you know, chatting, telling stories, things like that. So, we, you know, incorporated things like that into, to help us even take the messages even further than where it is today. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I diddle you again. No, seriously though, I think we just scratching the surface, especially with our community, with the young African American males and females and our youth. I think this work has to be supported, and we got to dive deeper. I think we got to get more people around it, more resources around it, and start putting some real infrastructure into it. And I think it's obviously going to dig up more deeper issues than gambling, but it's overdue, and it's time to really wrap our arms around this community. So.
So you can hear from the panelists. We really didn't talk about really specific strategy. We all talk about a context around us. So I feel that is really important. So a lot of fundings go toward you have to do this educational session, you have to do this clinical sessions. But for our community, a lot of time, it has to be a balance. It has to have a celebration for the Chinese New Year got funded by the prevention dollar. So we can say no betting in that event. So, and that funding is not going toward education, it's going to the festivity. And so that's a lot of funder will not do because they don't say that's effective. But we have to change the mindset about effective. Effective doesn't mean A lead to B lead to C. Effective has to come with where the community is at. And a lot of funding source may be just supporting the cultural events. And by showing cultural event can run better without tobacco, without alcohol ads, or without a betting station in the festival. So those are the things I will hope the funders will open up and come to realization. We have to have a balanced approach for the strategy, balance between education, balance between treatment, balance between even immerse our community into the awareness and starting to see a different ways to run the cultural festival too. Or without any things we would not have, people will feel that's abnormal, have a gambling continue to happen at the Saturday gathering. So those are the things need immersion experience, need different kind of mindset for funding, and need the collaboration with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And that really concludes our panel discussion. So please, everybody, help me to thank our speakers for sharing their different perspectives. And I do want to open it up for any questions or comments from the audience. But I do also have a question that I want to pose to you all as you represent different communities as well. What do you feel are the priorities in moving forward in addressing problem gambling right now?
I would like to hear some young folks talk about their experience too. Anybody's in the circle there?
Any brave souls?
How can you see we can help you for some of those gaming addiction?
Is it on? All right. So I just wanted to ask, like, through the different communities that are up there, the gaming is a different approach, but based on the different cultural approaches to those gamings, how does that, the negative or positive outlook on the games, how does that impact how the kids receive it? Like, based on the outlook from the parents or, you know, the guided, I don't know, like guardian, whatever the case may be.
I will hope is more young people would willing to talk to us. I think this is something we feel there's a definitely generational gap there. A lot of those gaming is a social circle which our generation may not comprehend well. So I really want to listen to more of the young folk and willing to communicate with us.
Yeah, I agree. I think the young people got to address, you know, and start telling us how it works too, because we don't game. So it's like we're not vested in it. But I think your voice is powerful to start helping other young people understand what the messaging is.
Yeah, I also agree that, I mean, we have to have communications, but at the same time, is this working? Parents still need to be educated. Like, what are the warning signs? You know, like, my son is struggling with an addiction. What are the signs? So my daughter has, you know, like, parents also need to be educated to be able to identify, you know. So sometimes, I mean, teenagers don't want to approach their parents, but if you say, I notice something is going on, can we talk about it? Then maybe they'll open up and, you know, talk about what's going on.
And another thing is, like, in our community, you know, we look to the athletes and the entertainers as leaders. So, I mean, if that's going to be the case and we can't deny it, I think we need to start equipping our athletes and entertainers with the messaging. And so that's another reason why we took a different approach, so, to delivering these messages.
Hi. My question for you all is, the gaming that we knew before and the gaming that we are in now is kind of different, because now people can game from anywhere, you know? So what are some strategies or your thoughts on being effective in the digital world, I guess, now that gaming's everywhere?
Well, from my perspective, I think it's going to be the information that we can get to our kids as soon as possible, and just knowing the ramifications of gaming, you know. So when you, like FanDuel, you can bet on yourself, you know. When you play college basketball, you can bet on yourself. Like, it's wild, and so there's ramifications for that. There's going to be problems and issues and sanctions and all that come about, but you know, it also starts a bad path for you too, in the wrong direction. So.
I would like to add to that. It's so hard to be able to track, you know, because everything is digital, right? There's some games that kids play that they're not even aware that there are gambling features built into these games. So, and that's hard to track, you know. So, I mean, we all know everyone has a cell phone, you know. How do you begin to track? That's I don't know. Yeah. To be honest, that's the honest answer, because it's so ingrained in everything, you know. And then there are kids that have gambled with their parents' phones without unknowingly, like, because, you know, sometimes you have your credit card information already, like, in your phone, and when you want to make a purchase, and kids have run up like bills of like $8,000. There was a kid that did $8,000 on buying games and things like that without the parents' knowledge. So it's so hard, and our community, I mean, like, the society gives digital everybody has something, and at a very young age, kids 10, 11 already have cell phones that have all these features. So it's been kind of hard to, to manage that. Thank you.
And I think it's really need to starting at the dining tables, really need to be able to communicate this type of behavior. I think a lot of times in the immigrant family, it's so hard because the parent didn't understand the new technology. And the kids are the head of household because they speak the English better. So those are the factors has to starting to talk at the dinner table at each family to communicate. It's harder to track, and it's the young people did not thinking about the gaming is, they did not thinking about that's gambling. They did not thinking about its addiction. They did not doing it because the pure fun. They doing it because the socialization of that gaming community. And that part should really be shared with parents at the dinner table so we can lead to the further action. But the communication is so hard for our immigrant parents as well because they speak in the different languages, and the youth trying to explain what is the English terms in the heritage language is just adding another layer of difficulty. So it's become totally shut down for a lot of my immigrant family. So that's what we continue to say, let's immerse the whole community into the discussion, because it's just hard for the families to deal with as an immigrant family facing so many barriers.
I just want to double back on that and just ask, due to the fact that you guys are leaders in these fields, are you, and the law is why a lot of these things are the way they are you guys like talking to the legislators or asking for resources for this in the community? Is that something that's going on or, that you're doing?
Go ahead.
I think Susan can answer that question.
That's the
Yes.
one.
Yes.
So each of the individuals received a grant from the Department of Human Services. As we receive money from the Department of Human Services, certain amount of money is set aside for free treatment in this state and then for prevention efforts. It's not enough. We need more. Clearly, there's a lot of, as each of these speakers have indicated, the complexity. There's so many layers to this. And we don't even have prevention, materials in the school. I can't say that often enough and loud enough. I mean, that is just inexcusable in my mind. And in terms of access to digital material, I mentioned earlier we have subscriptions to Gamban, which is an online blocking tool. It will block tens of thousands of sites. It's almost like whack-a-mole. They're trying to, ban as many as they can. But it's not a silver bullet, but it's an effective tool, and one subscription can be downloaded to 15 devices within a household. So we recommend that whatever computer, tablet, phone you have, you download that app. And it's one tool. But as you've heard today, there's a lot to this. And we all have a responsibility. As I said earlier, we need to be ambassadors to this awareness that everywhere I go, whether it's professional or personal, people know what I do. And I talk about it. And I know that we are touching people one by one by one. And while one by one is okay, I'd rather do 25, 50 at a time, really expanding what this issue is, what this addiction is, because it really does harm the individual as well as the family and the community.
For sure.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
There was one. There's one.
It's my kid. It's my kid. He keeps asking a question.
So you got the Gophers hat on. Is that for basketball or football?
Yes. Now, my son recently transferred back to the Gophers, so he's playing at the U, which is a big deal, and gives us a little bit more spotlight in the community and being able to reach out to more kids and touch more people. So we want to use all our resources and efforts to create this environment to reach these young men and women.
Okay, and then to add on to that, basketball is a sport that encompasses a lot of cultures, and many kids from different backgrounds, as you may know, are involved. In your case, how do you have the sufficient resources or staff to maybe implement the methodologies that they may have in one culture to kind of reach those students that you may not personally be able to reach? Can you just speak? Sorry. Can you speak a little bit more on that?
On cultural competency or what? On what?
Resources.
On resources?
So one, cultural competency, but also having to deal with a variety of different cultures within one sphere, basketball, but you have so many different backgrounds that are playing these sports and whatnot.
Well, sports brings people together. It makes the world smaller. So, and it makes you have to all focus on one goal, and that's the team. And so when you do that and you bring a lot of different people from different cultures and different backgrounds together, you can start bridging a lot of gaps. And I know what you're saying, but where we're trying to get to is just that, and that's able to help these young men with their narratives, these young women with their narrative, help create the storylines and build it up. So.
Thank you all so much for listening to us and joining in the conversation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.